Thursday morning, the forecast said solid cloud, but not true. But then, when do we ever rely on the forecast to tell us exactly what's going to happen in the great outdoors? So it's still a relatively quiet morning, and I've just set up my baby camera, my M50, doing a time lapse on some snowdrops. I don't know if this is going to work as an idea, but I'm kind of hoping the light's going to change enough to give some kind of action on them. At the moment, about 10 minutes in, there's zero chance of that. I've got to wait about 20 minutes to get about 9 seconds worth of video, and then I'm probably going to do another 20-minute session if I think there's any possibility. Other than that, I'm looking around. This is a relatively narrow section of the woods that I'm in. Sun's coming up now. I can see it, almost all of it away to my left, but there's not really much going on here. I'm having a look around for one of my favourite subjects, which is some fungi or mushrooms, but they tend to be a little bit deeper into the woods. Plenty of birds moving around. They're not making too much noise this morning, so just a question of walking up and down, getting some movement in to my rather stiff limbs, and waiting for this time lapse to finish. I set the beep going on the camera this morning so that I could be a bit more aware of what was going on. There's a crow talking to me up there. We're trying to. So yeah, I was saying I set the beep up on the camera this morning, so I've got a better idea of actually what's going on. I don't know if you can hear the beep going there. Not the most exciting piece of YouTube you've ever seen, watching the microphone being thrust into the frame, but I just wanted to demonstrate that the beep is actually a lot quieter than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be ringing out as it does when I use the touchscreen. I don't quite know how I've got it set up, but it's quite subtle. You've got to be very close to the camera to be able to hear it. The sun is now starting to strike some of the trees, so I'm just going to turn you around and show you what's going on while I'm waiting. And you can see it's just a bit of a tinge. It might look a little darker on the screen than it actually is, but it's not much brighter than that. And I always like to see that first light on the trees. It's a lovely colour. You can see it probably better on this tree closer to me. Wonderful. And as much as I enjoy it, my camera's the other camera I've got with me this morning is not coming out of the bag for that. It's not something I particularly need. I'm just going to stand here and enjoy the moment, looking out across the park there. So I had about 40 frames to go, and the decision for me in a minute is whether I'm going to spend another 20 minutes here and let it run through another cycle. I think it's on about 5 seconds intervals, might be 3, I can't remember now. My judgment is that there's been no significant change in the light on the snowdrops since I set it going. I probably misjudged how quickly the sun would sort of enter the woods. You can probably see, if I spin around a bit, that the light is taking some areas, but it's higher up. So it's whether I cut my losses and walk on, which is something I definitely do want to do, or whether I try again another morning to get the kind of effect that I'm looking for. And I suppose really, I mean, it's never going to be a photograph for me. This is just about trying something, different technique on location. It's, I sometimes think that time lapses are an actual good way of demonstrating how light changes in an environment, and how as photographers we kind of try and capitalize on that. And sometimes one of the dullest things that you can do as a photographer is just stand in one spot with your camera poised, waiting for that second when the light strikes in just the right way, and people look at you and wonder what on earth you're doing waiting there. And I don't mind that too much, to be honest with you, but it's a really difficult concept to demonstrate if you were trying to show somebody on YouTube. So that was really what was on my mind. And as anybody who's watched any of my other terrible videos will know, I'm very new to YouTube, although I'm about a year in now, but it's been a bit of a faltering start because I find the process of demonstrating what I'm doing or trying to do, or more to the point what I'm thinking, is quite difficult. I think sometimes for viewers it's a bit like watching paint dry or grass grow, which in this particular instance is very close to the truth. Another train going by. So I think that should now be finished. I'm just going to go and look and see how the light's doing. So let me just play what I'm seeing, and you might just see that as that plays through, you've got that kind of effect where the light did arrive briefly. Let me do that again, but not exactly the effect I was looking for. As far as the time lapse goes, I think there's going to be a dead loss. I'm going to attach it to the video so you can see what the effect was, and I'm going to come back tomorrow or Saturday. Fast forward to Friday, and though yesterday wasn't spectacular, today has even less going for it. It really is a gloomy, grey, overcast day. So my plan is to still finish off this video with some sort of conclusion to my mini time-lapse project, and I just need a little bit of change in light in order to do that. So here I am back on the time-lapse trail, and I've got a little bit of sunshine this afternoon, and I've taken a slightly different approach to the rather spontaneous effort that I made on, I think the first one was Thursday morning now. So I've gone for a bigger scene, in which case I'm hoping that the sun will play out in different ways across that. I've picked a tree with some form in it, albeit it's around the trunk, but that doesn't really matter for the purposes of this exercise. And the afternoon, well, I kind of, in my mind, thought that the time-lapse would be with the sun coming up and moving as it does early in the morning and quite rapidly across the scene. That's not what's going to happen here this afternoon. I'm really just relying on the cloud movement and a little bit of sun movement. If you're looking over this shoulder towards the tripod, you can see the rather well-lit tree closest to us, and that's where I've got the focus on it, and there are a couple of other trees in the background, so I'm just hoping that we'll see the principle of the light changing on that form. This one, this time lapse is going to take a little longer than the one I did on Thursday morning, so I'm hoping that I will see some variation within that. I think the camera told me that even with all of that done, the total video will only be about 27 seconds, but that's more than enough to see the principle. So that time-lapse session finished much more successfully than my first one, and you can see the effects of the time-lapse much better. I'm just going to show you on the back of the camera. This attempt seems to have achieved much closer to the sort of effect that I was trying to show. You can see the light changing there. And what's quite interesting about this is that for the 30 odd minutes or so that I was here, to the naked eye, the light barely changed. And particularly because it was so gradual, our eyes adjust and you don't get that different perception. But this was all recorded with one setting, one exposure set on the camera, so you get the idea of what was actually happening. Don't think I've explained that very well. I'll try and do better when I put the video together. So there we go. So now I'm bringing this video to a close. When I set out on Thursday morning, the idea I had in my mind was to do a time-lapse video, a short time-lapse video, just showing how the light can change on a subject. The mistake that I made was picking a too small a subject, and I got my timing on the light all wrong. On the back of that, I thought I'd go out early morning again and try again. Although I went out Friday, it didn't really work. Missed out on Saturday completely. Sunday afternoon now, and there is some mixed lighting out here. And this video, I haven't reviewed it on a computer screen yet, but seems to have achieved much more what I wanted to show. So I hope that's given you some thoughts for what you might do in your own video making and your own photography up to this time. It was my intention to try and show you how I set the camera up for that. Not that it's particularly difficult, but there may be some of you out there just wondering what's the best way to do it. And so I think I'll endeavour to make a separate video on that. And if anybody really is interested to see how I set the camera up, then please just drop me a comment. That would be really helpful as I try and develop the sort of ideas and thoughts about what I show on the videos here. If you've made it through however long this video is, thank you so much for following along, and I'll hopefully have another video out again for you in the not too distant future. Bye bye for now.